And without further ado, I give you Bill Pearson. Give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. All right, so now you know the topic. We're talking about Intel AI for enterprise inference, and we'll dive into what that's all about. And so this is me. I'm Bill Pearson. I work at Intel in our data center and AI organization. Now, one of the things that I think we've all experienced is the exponential growth of AI. When you dive down just a little bit deeper, of course, then we see that the exponential growth of inference is what's coming in the future. So we spent a bunch of time training models, and now we're going to spend a lot of time using those models to do interesting work. When you look behind the data, they're seeing 2.5 times, 250% growth over the next 5 years in inferencing. That's a lot. That's a lot, right? And if you look at some of the opportunities around this, we're seeing lots of companies embracing this. We had seen some data that said about 70% of the cost of a model is going to be in inference over just the next 3 years. So if you think about the cost to train the model, the cost to run the model, and the cost to do inferencing on the model, that's shifting away from just being a training as the main part to being inferencing as the main part. Now, as you go and try and deploy inferencing in your business, of course, it's complicated. And we see that about half of projects are projected to overrun their budget. Nobody wants that, right? I certainly don't, and I know you don't either. So what do we think about this? Well, we could say, okay, we can go solve this, perhaps. And as we go and solve this problem, implementing inference in our business, we run into some barriers that we need to work through together. And whether you're hosting on-prem or hosting in the cloud, the barriers are largely similar. This first one is really about scale. So moving from that POC, that application that you're developing to see if you can prove out the thesis, to really deploying it at scale. This is one of the big challenges, doing that in a cost-effective way, doing it in a way that it actually works at scale and hits all the targets that you've got for performance and KPIs, et cetera. The second challenge, of course, is managing the infrastructure to pull this off. Once you start scaling AI inference, it's a lot. And this is about where do I place a workload? Do I place it in the cloud? Do I place it at the edge? It's about scalability. So how do I make sure I have the infrastructure that's going to be able to support this? Have I chosen the right service provider? Have I built out enough infrastructure? Is it secure? Is it going to be compatible with the variety of hardware and software that I'm going to run underneath it? There's a ton here that's going on. And so what we're enabling enterprises to do is to really adopt low-cost inference with standards-based APIs. And this, as the intro said, really simplifies the whole process for adopting enterprise inference. Now, we call this Intel AI for enterprise inference, as you've heard from the beginning. The way that we've structured this is a single installer that pulls all the software that you need to make this work. So the first innovation is actually quite simple. It's just making sure that the thing is easy to use, easy to get started with. So for that enterprise IT shop, you don't have to figure out a bunch of complexity of do I need this stack or that stack, do I need this component or that version. You just run the installer and we take care of it. That's the first piece. The second piece is really to make sure that there's an API there, and we'll talk a little bit more about these, but an API that's standard, an API that the industry already understands so that your developers don't have to learn anything new to go and use this service. And then, of course, we want to make sure that not only is it easy to install and use, but that it scales, that it's secure, and that it provides what your business is looking for. And then lastly, you might say, well, how much is this going to cost? And of course, being Intel, we're in the business of selling hardware. So this is free software that you can use either in your enterprise to go and deploy this directly on your hardware, or you can, as a service provider, provide this service to other companies. And of course, you can go the other way around of, as an enterprise, buying it from some of these partners, and we'll talk about one of those here as we go through today. Now, one of the questions that you might think through is, what is this standards-based service? So what API are you using? Why would we think about this? The idea of using standards, and Intel's a huge believer in standards in general, I think they help the industry to just coalesce around a common solution. And when you think about inference, OpenAI has a set of APIs, again, a standard, that we can all use, and you see people using today. Sometimes they're using to directly access OpenAI's infrastructure, but because it's a standard, you can use that same construct to access any infrastructure. And so we've taken that installation that I talked about, all of the software that you need to make this work, and we've put this behind a set of OpenAI compatible APIs. So you have applications that already know how to use this. You have developers that already understand these APIs. It's very simple to then switch to using this infrastructure, again, hosted where you'd like it hosted in the cloud or in your own premises. Now, the endpoints are also validated against a set of Intel hardware. So you don't have to worry about, is this going to work? We've tested that, and we know that it does work. But we've not stopped there just, hey, running against our hardware. We've also tested against a variety of use cases. So another project that we've been working on for this past year is our open platform for enterprise AI. We call it OPIA. This platform has a variety of primarily RAG-based, but starting to be agent-based use cases. And we've made sure to validate those use cases as well, so that, again, the API is going to be consistently viable and usable throughout all of the use cases you're going to implement in your business. So as we go through and use this, of course it's going to run on Intel. One of the most interesting things for me, though, is that it works across all of Intel's hardware. And there's a little bit of magic in here as well. So we've, of course, designed it to work with Gaudi accelerators, super important, and you've seen a lot of those hopefully here today at the show. It also works on Xeon. You don't always need Gaudi to do AI. Sometimes you do, but you may have use cases where Xeon is the right fit for you. And increasingly, we see people also looking at use cases where an AI PC might be the right fit for you as well. And as you think about the complexity of questions that people might ask when they're trying to do inference or the variety of use cases, there may be times when you need to use a mix of these as well. And so one of the things that we've included inside of the Inference API kit here, Intel AI for Enterprise Inference, is this routing that we will route the query to the appropriate hardware. So when you set this up, if you have AI PCs, Xeons, and Gaudis, and again, not everyone's going to have that mix, but if you have a variety of hardware, we can make sure that for your organization, we're routing the appropriate queries to the right pieces of hardware. So this can cost optimize and performance optimize your systems. All right, so this is what delivery looks like in practice. You can start with an enterprise application that you've developed, that you've bought, or you've partnered with an ISV around. And then you can go on the bottom here, the path is showing going directly to your hardware. So this would be something in a data center, something sitting in your colo. You buy it from an OEM, you set up the inference APIs on that system, and now your applications are directly leveraging them. And that certainly is a use case that some people will use. There's also the use case where you have a cloud partner and you are having your AI compute in the cloud. And now you say, how am I going to access that? It's not on-prem. You have an API, but I go through AWS, or I go through a cloud provider, right? So what we've done is created marketplace entry here so that you can go and use, in this case, let's take AWS as an example. You can go and use an Amazon marketplace entry to access these APIs that are hosted somewhere else in a cloud. And it's all seamless to your application. So you can leverage your S3 buckets, you can leverage all of your Bedrock support, you can leverage all of the things you're getting from the CSP, and you can also leverage the Gaudis where they happen to sit. So there's a variety of implementation options available to you is the point, and we'll make it seamless again so that the API is all you need to understand, and your business can go and use that compute where it sits in how it's hosted. So I mentioned the open platform for enterprise AI and the variety of use cases that supports. So we've created example code, sample applications that are fully usable. We provide the source, but they also will run, and you can try them out for yourselves. These things range from agents to agentic Q&A to doing regular chat Q&A, video Q&A, to doing content summarization, FAQ generation, just a whole bunch of use cases that you can use. All of those use cases will work with these inference APIs. They're validated and tested, and that you can go deploy them in your enterprise. I want to not scare you, but I want to show you a picture here of just a complex enterprise workflow. And as complexity goes, this one's relatively simple. This is a standard RAG implementation. And if you look at the RAG implementation, you might say, well, okay, where does this inference API fit? how does it play nicely with the rest of the applications and microservices that are going on in my environment? And the reality is that it has a very specific role. It works nicely with all the other services. So if you were going to do a regular RAG application, you would have a bunch of the blue boxes here that would take care of things like getting the user queries, doing all of that exercise. You would access data that's in your enterprise, in your data lake or in your S3 bucket somewhere. And then you would call the Inference API to go and do the very narrow focused inference job that you want done. API in, you get your data back out, and it works. So this seamless integration allows you a lot of flexibility. You can do multiple applications with multiple use cases, and again, it all centers around that single API. And I want to give you a preview of what it would look like for your developers to go and try and implement this. And the reality is it's very simple. So our motto here is really about switching variables and not code. The two highlighted things here, API key and base URL, those are the two things that you need to change to use this, or things you need to provide. So where is it hosted? That's the URL. Is it hosted on some partner website? Is it hosted in some of your... That URL is going to give you the location, your application, the location of where. Then the API key is just your key to unlock it, to say you're authorized to go and use it. Those two things are often implemented as variables in a configuration of an application. They can be directly in code like this one is. But with those two things, you're providing the key to make this Inference API work. And so it's pretty cool when you think about that. I don't have to do a lot of coding. I don't have to do really any work here. All I have to do is tell my application where the inference is hosted and how to access it through that key. And when I do that, now I've got seamless integration with these OpenAI APIs. I can adopt this very, very easily with a couple of lines of configuration changes. And of course, I can access cost-effective LLM hosting because I'm doing it where I want to host it. And speaking of that, if you haven't been over to the IBM booth over here, you should. We just announced the availability of IBM Cloud with Gaudi 3, and we're very, very excited about this, both us and IBM. And this is a great partner for running these. We're implementing deployable architectures on IBM Cloud, so you can take these Inference APIs, run them as a deployable architecture, set it up there, and get started right away. So it's not hard at all there, and IBM can make it simple and cost-effective for you. All right, so if you want to find out more, I have 3 ways you can do that. So one of them is go to our booth. We have 2 demos, one in the IBM booth back here. It's 108, I believe. 104, excuse me. And then the Intel booth is the other one, and that's just right directly across from the IBM booth. So you can see it in action, talk to some folks about it today. You can also use this QR code to get more information, request access to a POC on IBM Cloud. Or, of course, contact your Intel sales representative or Aaron Terstig, my good friend. He's sitting back here in the audience, so you can talk to him as well.
All right, do we have any questions? Don't be shy. Raise your hand. Anybody have any questions? I don't know, but I think I terrify
Too
them.
easy.
You just blew their mind. They're still absorbing it, right?
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's give a big round of applause for Bill Pearson. That was a wonderful presentation.